and welcome to a new episode of Bite-Sized Book History. I'm your host, Allie Alvis. I'm a rare book librarian and book historian who some of you may know better as Book Historia on Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Today I'm going to talk to you about manicules, and I'm gonna try not to make too many bad puns along the way. Oh, I can't help myself. Manicules! Man, they're cool. Have you ever needed a hand marking a passage in a text? If so, manicules are for you. And there are so many shapes and styles to choose from. Anyway, let's get to the point of this episode and figure out what those little hands in the margins of old books are. The word manicule comes from the Latin maniculum, meaning literally little hand. These symbols have gone by many names over the centuries, including digit, hand director, printer's fist, and index. You may recognize index as the name for your pointer finger. Index comes from the Latin indico, meaning to point. So no matter what you call it, you're always talking about pointing. In the early days of the codex format, the manicule emerged as an important tool for readers. But it was only one of many symbols and notes that readers employed to add to the text of their books. Although it may horrify some of us today to think of adding marks to books in this way, marking up your book and adding your own notes was an integral part of reading in the past. Methods for adding notes to books were taught in school. Rather than a defacement of the author's intent, these notes were seen as an interaction between the reader and the author, creating the best possible text between the original text of the author and what the reader could add to it. Manicules were used to flag important passages in text. Readers could add additional notes at the end of the wrist, or let the manicule stand on its own as a marker. The pointing finger evokes authority, and some historians connect this pointing finger to the hand of God. According to Keith Houston's excellent book, Shady Characters, the first attested use of a manicule comes in the English Domesday Book, written in 1086. As marginalia, manicules peaked in popularity in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. In his landmark essay on the history of the manicule, William H. Sherman describes how, aside from a signature or a monogram, the manicule was the most personal symbol a reader could develop and deploy. It seems like there are an infinite number of variations on the simple form of a pointing finger. Some sport elaborate sleeves and fabulous outfits. Others have some questionable anatomy. And still others, well, they're not hands at all. My favorite example of a non-hand manicule are these birdicules from the Smithsonian Library's copy of Averroes' commentary on Aristotle. There's even one who seems to be wearing a little kilt. When Western printing technology developed in the 1400s, printers were quick to adopt the pointing hand symbol to help readers navigate the printed text. But unfortunately, these printed manicules lacked a little bit of the personality of their handmade counterparts. Just as manicules began to fade from reader use in the 19th century, they experienced a bit of a resurgence in printed advertisements. Rather than drawing a reader's eye to an important passage, they drew a potential customer's eye to something that could be sold. Once again, varieties of the manicule proliferated. It seemed like every typeface had their own take on the manicule. In fact, I have a little manicule metal type here. You can see it's not quite as fabulous as the manuscript manicules that I've shown earlier in the video, and I'm not entirely sure what typeface this is from. But it is definitely Victorian, and it probably came from, as I mentioned, an advertisement. Manicules are actually more common now in the 21st century than they ever have been before. In fact, you probably use one every day. That's right, sometimes your mouse cursor is a manicule. Hover over any clickable item, such as the like and subscribe button, and bam, little pointing hand. Apple introduced the first digital manicule as part of their 1987 HyperCard development kit, although they didn't include it in their operating systems until 2003. Manicules also pop up in your emoji keyboard. Graphic designer Vanessa Wong has a neat little zine on the history of the manicule titled Index. You can find it linked in my further reading below if you want to engage in a bit of guerrilla manicule education. On a much less sophisticated front, I tried my hand at cookie-based art with a manicule cookie cutter a couple Christmases ago. The design is based on a page from the Smithsonian Library's heavily annotated copy of the 1491 edition of Pliny's Natural History. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but it was fun to make. Delicious, too. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Bite-Sized Book History. If you enjoyed it, make sure to click those manicules on the like, comment, and subscribe buttons. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next time. Actually, before you go, you may have noticed that there was a bit of a gap between this episode and my last one. Well, I have been in talks to move the Bite-Sized Book History show to a new home, so keep your eyes open for big news in the coming months. In the meantime, don't bite your books, and I'll see you soon.